and add some feed here. So this right here is not a normal practice for us, okay? Normally, we just put feed in these feeders and we call it good. That's their feeders. And we don't worry about adding little feeders like this. But as I mentioned, these birds are basically behind their target feed consumption rate. And so we saw that, you know, early on. We saw that happening. And look, I mean, that's awesome. It's not awesome that they're standing in it, but it's awesome they're coming right to it. But you know, there's already feed on the floor. Why didn't they go to the feeders? And that's what I'm getting at here. We saw this early on developing that, hey, they're not consuming the feed at the rate that our flocks normally do. What's going on here? And we kept kind of brainstorming, you know, and look, they know I'm going to put feed in there. But see how these birds are that close to that feeder, but they're coming to this feeder instead. Why? But that's what we got to talking about, and I scared them just being there and their reactivity level. And then they go stand in it. But that's what we got to talking about. We've got all these great feeders out, and we know these are birds that are known for a heavy appetite, and yet they're not going to food. What's going on? Something in their development or in their production cycle has kind of stifled their appetite. Okay, and they had a difficulty in the beginning. They got stuck in transport and ended up in shipping. We estimate about 30 hours, and ideally that'd have been like 7 or 8 hours. Okay, but here's this bird was close to that feeder, but we've put feed in that feeder, and it looks like it's going to go to that feeder. But we got to talking about that here. So why is that? Why do we have all these feeders? Should have been plenty of feeding space for all of our birds, and they weren't going to food, and they were getting behind. Well, we can't change what's been, but we said, is there some kind of like animal psychology here we can use that, we got a mess there. Some kind of animal psychology here we can use that will help us get these birds to eat. And I had just kind of tongue-in-cheek said, I feel like we'd have more success if we just dumped bags of feed on the floor for them. And so that got us kind of brainstorming, well, what if we could take some other kind of little pan and just put the food all around and mimic it being on the floor? How would the birds react to it? So that's what we did. So these are the bases to our single gallon waters. Okay, those are the bases to the single gallon waters, and we put those all around the pen. And look at them. There's one. You know, there's two up there. They're eating out of them. There's one here, one there. So I don't know if that's animal psychology, or I don't know if that's meat birds being bird brains. But what I do know is when you're definitely when you're raising meat birds, but I'm sure when you're raising any kind of livestock for production agriculture, you just have to honestly assess the situations that you're dealing with. You have to observe them. You have to observe what's going on with your operation and with your animals. And you have to honestly assess what's going wrong. And when you see things going wrong, you have to adjust. And you have to find a way to shift that stuff back to going right with production agriculture, to get things back on a schedule, because we're on a timetable. You know, they have a processing date on August 28, 2024, and it's scheduled at a processor. So, you know, we've got them holding a date for us. And even if they even if they had the flexibility to change the date, the fact of the matter is that date is right up against an American holiday weekend, Labor Day weekend. So we do know that our processor has lots more. You coming to eat? Has lots. Yeah, look at that. Honest to goodness, walked by 2 feeders to get to that feed, and didn't stop and eat here. Walked by 2 feeders to get to. And so anyway, so I was saying, you know, our date that we have is right up against an American holiday weekend. So for us, a lot of counties have fairs, and they make standing appointments with processors for animals to get into the processor that are sold at the fairs in livestock sales. So a lot of the processors are always booked around fairs. So that's why one reason we're not going to ask for any change at our processor. But another reason is because we're also up against the next flock coming in within a week later after this one's scheduled processing date, okay? So, you know, it doesn't matter what angle we look at it from. We really don't have flexibility to postpone the processing date. So we're going to have to go with whatever we've got at processing with our birds and size-wise. So I hope that they're big enough for us to be satisfied with finishing them. We hope, there, that's good. That's the feeders we want y'all to eat out of. We hope that they're big enough that we'll be satisfied with taking them to processor and with finishing them on August 28th. But based on the feed consumption, we're more or less supposing that they're probably going to be smaller than what we want. But you know what? My husband says this is all going to be fine. So we're going to go with his perspective. But it does frustrate us, you know, that we know there's a certain threshold of feed you really need to get in these birds to get a nice feed to meat conversion and a nice finish. But this is a nice looking meat bird, you know. So they've got one more week, and a lot of the growth happens in the last week for sure. So we just, you know, we want to see like these birds here at the water, you know, they're not there yet. We want to see more feed to meat conversion in the chicken breast, drumsticks, and thighs. This bird is on the small side. Now this is really where we want to be at 4 weeks old. That one, whoop, I kind of startled it. It just walked up to the water. And actually those 3 at that water, the one being so kind as to stand on our feed for us, all those that we're seeing standing in the camera right there, they're good size at this age. Pleased with that. You know, they've got another week to grow. So at any rate, we're going to try to just keep them eating. This is a good size for now. And I guess we observe all that visually just because we're used to seeing meat birds. But they'll fill out, you know, a week. They'll put a lot of weight on. But the other concern is, look at them around that makeshift feeder. Isn't that great? When they have these great feeders. But the other thing that is a concern is the ambient temperature. It's not going to stay perfect for them. So right now is actually about 60 degrees Fahrenheit where I am, which is probably a little on the cool side for them. But today will be nice. Today will probably be just about right for them. This rooster walking here, that's great. That's what we want to see at 4 weeks old. So him with another week, if heat stress doesn't get him sometime in that week, that bird's going to finish well. And that's what we want to see throughout the flock. But see the one standing beside him? That's also another little rooster, honestly. And he's not very big. So he's not going to get the same finish that one is. Okay? But they will grow a lot in a week. They do say meat birds put on the most and fill out the most in the last 10 days. Well, we're down to the last 5 because of our timetable. So we want to see them eat and we want to see them grow. We want to see them eat and we want to see them grow. So we didn't pre-sale anything on this flock. although orders are coming in, and some of the items that we will harvest from this flock are now getting reserved. So that's good. Honestly, this is interesting. Y'all may find this interesting. One of the first reservations made on this flock, about half of the chicken feet. Okay? So what you can see of the chicken leg there and its toes and its feet, we market those, okay? And so for this flock, about half of the chicken feet are reserved and already sold. They make a great dog treat. And actually people eat them too. And they can be eaten by people, or they can also be used to make broth, and very high in collagen, chondroitin, and glucosamine. But because of that, they also make a great dog treat. So we do like to get them from the processor. They put those chicken feet in packs, approximately 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds each pack, and there may be 18 to 20 some chicken feet in there, and they're frozen just like the rest of the poultry order, and then we can thaw them, semi-thaw them, and dehydrate them. Takes about 72 hours at 158 degrees Fahrenheit, and dehydrated like that, they store well, shelf stable, and they're great dog treats. And because of all that great stuff in them, they can basically replace a joint supplement for dogs. So that's kind of interesting. Small dogs 1 a day, large dogs 2 a day. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that we're going to end